Let us build a house where love can dwell and all can safely live. A place where saints and children tell how hearts learn to forgive. Built of hopes and dreams and visions, rock of faith and vault of grace. Here the love of Christ shall end divisions. All are welcome, all are welcome, all are welcome here.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus told his disciples this parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out at dawn to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with them for the usual daily wage, he sent them to his vineyard. Going out about 9 o'clock, the landowner saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You too go into my vineyard, and I will give you what is just." So they went off. And he went out again around noon and around 3 o'clock, and did likewise. Going out about 5 o'clock, the landowner found others standing around and said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all day?" They answered, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You too go into my vineyard." When it was evening, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Summon the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and ending with the first." When those who had started about 5 o'clock came, each received the usual daily wage. So when the first came, they thought that they would receive more, but each of them also got the usual wage. And on receiving it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last ones worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who bore the day's burden and the heat." He said to them in reply, "My friend, I am not cheating you. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what is yours and go. What if I wish to give the last one the same as you? Or am I not free to do as I wish with my own money? Are you envious because I am generous? Thus the last will be first, and the first will be last." The Gospel of the Lord. As we listen to this reading, which only occurs in St. Matthew's Gospel, the parable has of great interest to us all. Some of us feel that it was unfair, just as that person that started working at the beginning of the day thought it unfair that even though he had agreed with the daily wage, he should have get more, because our capitalistic system says he should get more. But God is generous. God is kind. God is merciful. We've got to remember that from God's viewpoint, the one who stood there all day and still had to feed his family that night was just as much in need of a daily wage as the one who had worked from the beginning of the day. And so as we look at this from a viewpoint of justice, you would say that first, and especially the one at 9 o'clock, was to get what was just, and they did. But also, we look at it from the viewpoint of mercy, together with justice. And when we look at it that way, something different occurs to us. Oh yes, everyone deserves their daily wage. Everyone must live. And so when we look at it that way, it suddenly becomes a different story. Jim Weicker, a Protestant missionary in Japan early in his life, but who was a very great activist in Berea, Kentucky for many years, was listening to me at Mass with this homily here, and he said to me, "You know, it was awfully hard on those people that stood there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He said we should have great sympathy for that type of person because so many in the world are in that boat. And I agree with Jim. It is true. We all have a right to work, to make a living. That's what it means. Working means to take your talent that you have and use it to the benefit of others. And our society should allow that. Should allow every person, and it is the duty of our government to make sure that all work. Yes, all. Is it wrong to work? Well, many people who complain about their work is because they are doing something they would prefer not to and would like to use their talents in different ways. They're not so much against working itself, it's against the fact that they do not like what they're doing. But taking on the whole, people in their generous and kind way should be people who see that work is something that's a privilege. For our lives are short, very short, and we try to make the best of them while those talents last and we have the mobility to do it. And so we want to do the right thing in the time that we've got. Now we say we have the duty to work. Work is available, and work should be given to each of them. You say work is available, that's not true. The robots are taking the place of many people. In fact, in this pandemic that we've just got, there's 5 categories of people they talk about. Those who are travelers in the traveling profession, those who are salespeople losing their jobs, those who are building offices, and then people are staying home. That building process could probably mean reductions in employment. And then if we can think of others too, but we've got to remember that it's more than just what is being done now by profit-making organizations. Yes, we went from 3-point-some% of unemployment to over 10% during this year, and it's not going to come down easily. But then we can say we can be creative. We can be people who find the work that needs to be done, and it needs to be done. Think of 60 million households where elderly, or the sick, or the very young need to have people to be there to take care of them. You say, well, they need work, and I'd say, yes, they do. They need work to have caregivers in those homes. In progressive countries like Ireland, they actually pay the person in their own home to do the work that's needed when elderly people have to be taken care of. We don't do that here. We don't even think about it. And yet here it is, 60-some million jobs, very meaningful jobs that could be and should be done alone in this one area. Bring in the environment. Bring in many other areas of the infrastructure of our society, which needs to have many, many workers right today. So it's not a question of the people willing to work. It's not a question that work is available. The right to work is being infringed upon because the money that is needed to do it is not available. Some have billions. 60% of our income go to a small 1% of our people, and they have the power and the politics to keep from paying fair taxes. Why can't we make the work available by taxing those that need to have it done, and that there can be equality in our society? That question has got to be asked. It is not time for us to say, oh, they didn't go out and look for work. If they would have looked for work, they could have depressed the other fellow who was trying for the same job. No, they all need to work, and there's work available. The right to work is something we must call for. And it is called for really in looking at the merciful God who made sure that those who came at the 5 o'clock got a daily wage. Let's think about that. I think that in Jesus' own way, he was telling us a story that has deep social justice consequences today. Let's make it possible that all can have a meaningful life.
Let us build a house where love can dwell and all can safely live. A place where saints and children tell how hearts learn to forgive. Built of hopes and dreams and visions, rock of faith and vault of grace. Here the